You don't have to do that. The people can pick up from context, right? They're not stupid. Your readers are not stupid. Now, this Wasteland Woes is actually a book that I've read up to chapter 6. All right, I've read up to The Price of Scavenging, and I've had to stop, honestly, because I wasn't enjoying the story that much. I wasn't enjoying it that much, and I was 40 pages in. I DNF'd it, and this is a review for the most part as to why I DNF'd. It is by Isaac, and it is Wasteland Woes. And this story has a really, really malignant problem, all right? So, I had to stop because of that issue. And another problem, which is actually, basin, which we'll talk about later. A tall bait. And this story starts with a dark orange scorching hue filled the sky as the sun glowed. Dark orange scorching. Okay, so scorching, I would assume that it's just too many descriptions. A dark orange scorching hue. An orange hue filled the sky would be much faster. As the sun glowed. Okay. I know the sun glows, right? So, the heat was so bad in the wasteland that it was hard for people to live. The sun was one of many challenges in this world, and only brave or foolish people would try to cross the rough land during the day when the sun was the strongest. Now, have you spotted the problem? Because the problem I'm trying to get across here is this. The sun was one of many challenges in this world. Now, last video we talked about, what bad exposition looks like. Well, how to actually fix that. How to fix it. And that's what we'll talk about in this video. And so in here, the problem is that I am being told that the sun is dangerous, right? The sun was one of the many challenges. However, if you want to have correct or the right exposition for the beginning of your story, because toward the end, the latter half or the middle way, I think you could definitely tell more. But in the beginning, you want to be a lot more tight about it, and you want to be a lot more precise, a lot more specific, and you want to give an example of what you're talking about. So the sun was one of the many challenges in this world. How is it one of the many challenges? And of course, in this, we have a human courier, right? So of course, we have a person. We have a person going through this desert, this sun-scorched land, wasteland. Well, it would be a good opportunity to describe that human and how the heat affects the body, right? Well, we don't get that. One of the people was a human, courier, though not alone on his journey, as his group of faithful dogs accompanied him. These dogs were, tight-knit, looking out for each other, and the courier, the pack leader, they all depended on each other to survive the challenges of the journey. Well, the best thing you could do in this paragraph is to remedy the problem you have created in here by simply showing, because I think the key to success is showing and telling. So you have told, you should show. And we don't get that at all. Maybe you want to show dead people. Maybe you want to show dead human skulls, right? And so this problem is really malignant through this entire first chapter. And as you go down, it gets better and better and better. However, ultimately, this problem is what also makes the pacing very bad. And the back brought comfort and security to the courier, making the journey through the wasteland a little easier. Okay, a lot of telling, significantly more telling. As I said, it is better to have showing and telling. Contrary to the popular belief of just showing. If you show everything, then the book is going to be 5,000 pages long. Instead, you have to sometimes tell. And a lot of times you'll have to tell. So you need to find a balance. You need to learn how to do both. And the earliest possible opportunity, you want to show. Because the audience doesn't know anything about your world, it's better to immerse them and to show your world rather than tell them. And this problem keeps going. By the way, we can go down a few paragraphs. And of course, this story is actually about bunch of characters that are trying to survive in this wasteland. In this first chapter specifically, we have this human courier, a pack of wolves that are with him. sorry, a pack of dogs that are with him, and he, surprise, surprise, spoiler, he dies. He dies, and he leaves the littlest dog, right? The littlest dog, the littlest dog, it was in this one, right? She's left alone by herself, and we follow her in the second chapter and the third chapter. The pack brought comfort and security, making the journey through the wasteland a little easier. The littlest dog was in that stage of life where she wasn't quite a puppy anymore, but not fully grown. She was in that awkward in-between stage. Maybe you want to show that the littlest dog bumbling around. Instead, we are told that she's having difficulty keeping up, for example. But that didn't stop her from being just as loyal as the rest of the pack. She walked closest to the pack leader. Her paws were strong, perfect for navigating this harsh world. She had heard tales that the wasteland used to be lush with life, until something changed many nights before she was born. I will get back to this. Okay, about the littlest dog, we have been told that, she is the littlest dog. Awkward stage of life, right? In between. Well, maybe you want to show her, stumbling or, like just not being effective at keeping up. We are, instead of being shown that, we are told she was the runt of the litter, which made keeping up with the pack hard at times. However, being small also had benefits. So keeping up was hard. All right. How? You want to show that. Because it's the beginning of the story, you want to show at every possible opportunity. In fact, I think early on in your story, you should show a lot more than you tell. However, being small also had benefits. She could easily hide, a skill that made her helpful during stealth missions. But coming back to this, she had heard tales that the wasteland used to be lush with life until something changed many nights before she was born. Well, many nights before she was born. I mean, maybe you want to show dead people, dead skulls, dead animals, a pack of herd that entirely died, cows everywhere, or wildebeests dead. It's not a savanna. It's mostly a desert-like world, because it's post-apocalyptic Earth, right? The pack leader was tall and weathered, and a weathered man. So we go on, right? If you keep going to the end of the paragraph, they are going through the desert, and they're going to a bridge, and they come across a bunch of raiders, and here, unfortunately, danger found them before they even stepped onto the bridge. Raiders. They arrived from the opposite side of the bridge in a plume of smoke and roaring motors. This here is actually the first hint that the author can actually write a story without having to use a lot of these cliches, a lot of these telling a lot of the time. The author here showcases that he can show. They were an intimidating group, even though fewer than the pack of dogs and the human leader, led by a woman with sunburnt skin and bright red hair styled in a ladder braid, and so on and so forth. Ultimately, the someone is actually cleaning. Ultimately, he dies, right? Ultimately, the courier dies and the dog is left alone, right? By the way, as a fun fact, this one does have better dialogue, significantly better dialogue. But as you can see, what was it? It was somewhere here. I think I can skip to no. But only she woke up or something like that. Yeah, here. This one, right? Eventually she dies, and it gets better. It gets better in the subsequent chapters. Lonely in the wasteland. The dog was feeling incredibly lonely as she roamed the desolate wasteland. Now, this is mostly children's story. However, he does communicate that better this time. All right. Every day felt like a never-ending journey as she wandered aimlessly for food, water, and companionship. Her memories of her pack leader and siblings were all she had to hold on to, and she missed them deeply. She longed. Okay, I understand this is mostly telling, right? But the situation is actually improved. Starting from the second paragraph. The first paragraph is awful. It is bad. It is terrible. It is a crime. But the second paragraph is actually significantly better. As she trudged through the damaged landscape of the wasteland, the once comforting sound of her footsteps was now a constant reminder that she was alone. See? I told you. I told you. It gets better. It does get better. She felt vulnerable. Okay, damn. Come on. Without her back by her side. Okay, so you communicated this information multiple times, all right? She felt, incredibly lonely. All right? Every day felt like a never-ending journey as she wandered aimlessly, right? Her memories of her back. So we know this information. You don't have to communicate it again. It's remarkably unnecessary, all right? Then, her footsteps, she was vulnerable, yeah. Mutated animals roamed the land, twice her size. I like this a lot more because it shows what the harsh sun can do. And with sharp teeth and claws that could tear her apart instantly. She had also crossed paths with raiders who would stop at nothing to get what they wanted, and the scent of mutant humans who were as deadly as they were mysterious. Yet, despite all of this, the dog survived through her quick thinking and determination. How? So the problem persists. It's not as bad, but it persists. This day had been another long, hot one in the wasteland. Bro, we know it's hot one. Every day in the wasteland is a hot one. In fact, I know so much about the wasteland already, but it was the incoming chill of the night that the dog was worried about now. She needed a warm, safe place for the night as she scanned the horizon for the signs of shelter. So at least there's much more direct story. And it even gets better when you go to the third chapter. By the third chapter, the problem is mostly in the background. She struck her head through the crack in the shelter. The crack in the shelter struck her head. A metal sheet held up a plastic tarp with a patchwork of repairs. The dog scanned the interior. A small girl with blonde, shoulder-length curly hair was sitting cross-legged on the floor. Her skin was surprisingly pale, with strikingly bright yellow eyes. The girl was cleaning a gun with a long barrel and a sight on it to help her aim. The dog had seen raiders use them, but this one was much smaller. Next to her was a jar of tiny yellow pellets. She couldn't have been older than 6. She wore a tattered, grubby dress that had been sewn up and repaired many times. Now, this is not the best paragraph, primarily because the sentence is structured. You have one sentence, you have another flat sentence, another. So mid-range, short range, mid-range, long range, short range. But, this one is the only diversification that you're going to see. But it's repeated at the same time. So this structure is the only diversification you're going to see in the sentence structure. So I wouldn't say this is a good paragraph. However, it does not suffer from the problems of telling, does it? In fact, you can keep going. The young teen had a serious look on his face with scars and bruises that showed that he had been in more than his fair share of scrabs. Despite his early age, he was battle-worn. His, protective gear indicated he was ready for the wasteland's danger. And the list goes on. You can keep reading. The dog picked up the scent of delicious cooking. Picked up. The boy did over cooking. The boy did over one of the small fires, and the aroma of boiling water from the other. Boiling soup. Like boiling water does whatever. The warm, comforting smells of food and cleanliness filled the air. And the dog's nose twitched with hunger. Twitched. All right? Twitched. That is a very, very sharp description. It's not necessarily telling me. It's showing me. Now remember, showing is not always the answer, but a combination of both. As you can see in the first chapter and a lot of the second chapter, this story is heavily skewed toward telling, but this one is much more balanced. Despite the young warrior's rough appearance, the dog could sense. This is telling me, right? the care and effort he had put into setting up this small shelter and the cooking meal, and cooking meal, right? So this is mostly telling, but it is good. It's good type of telling because it depends on the intuition of the character, and it gets across a somewhat, useful information about the characters, about the boy, right? The young man's bamboo sword glimmered in the firelight, sheathed at his side, and the problems are not really persistent. In other words, the terrible information delivery, right, which was heavily skewed toward telling, is really not the issue here anymore. You can see in the same story, you can have the problem go away slowly as the author gets deeper and deeper into the story. So why does it happen? The reason why it happens is because, for the most part, a lot of people feel the need to just give more information, to tell more in the first chapter. But you shouldn't do that. You don't have to do that. The people can pick up from context, right? They're not stupid. Your readers are not stupid. Now, I understand this story is mostly for younger audiences because of this, it is mostly for young audiences. We can obviously tell that, but even children are not that stupid. So, knowing the dangers of the wasteland, he was not willing to risk his sister's safety. So that is where the first problem with this is. But the second issue that you come across is actually the pacing. And the pacing in the beginning of the story is absolutely just bogged down. It is bogged down by the telling. The first chapter, I'll tell you this. For example, this entire story is 73 pages, right? The first chapter, which really doesn't get across much, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 pages. 9 pages to get across very little. And by the way, these are fat pages, because in an actual book, you're not going to have this many words. This is too many words. Look at this. This paragraph 1, 2, 3. This is gigantic. So this is probably 30 pages. If you were to put this in our book, this is up to 30 pages now, or more than that. And the pacing, therefore, is really not good, because there is very little you can get across in those 30 pages in an actual book. We have the courier. He goes through the wasteland. He encounters the raiders, and he gets injured and he dies. And the littlest one is left alone, right? So the littlest dog is left alone. So she's left alone. She roamed the desolate wasteland. Well, not useful information, I would say. There's not a lot communicated in 30 pages of an actual book. So the pacing is bad, and it is bogged down, as I said, by the extreme telling. A lot more is done in chapter 2. A lot more is done in chapter 2, which starts from page 10 and to page 15. But a lot more is done, way more, in just 5 pages, which is about half. So this would be like 15 pages that in a book. And in chapter 3, way more is done. It starts from the 16th page, goes on, and I don't remember the exact page number. Let's just go 16 to 26. So that's 12 pages. But there is a lot more done. There's way more done. A lot more characters introduced. A lot more depth. I would say it's a lot better. And so the pacing for the beginning of this story is very bad. It gets better as you go on. The exposition is very bad. It gets better as you go on. Everything is bad when it starts. Typically, most people will have the opposite problem, where when they start the story, Isaac, opposite problem, because everyone is like, I have a great beginning, but the rest of the story is awful, right? So I had to really stop this story, and this is the reason why I've had to stop it. I just felt like for the most part, it was not effectively using, anything, right, early on, and I was really put down by that, so I had to really stop, and I DNF'd it at chapter 6, page 39 or something like that. Yeah, here. Had to stop. Yeah, I had to stop here. Bye bye. Exactly. Yeah, I had to stop at chapter 6. Again, I recommend you go check this story by Isaac. It is already published. It's got an Amazon page. And I hope that you enjoyed this. Have a nice day.